Ethan sat in the corner of the human quarters, staring at the dark metal walls that surrounded him. He could hear nothing except the quiet hum of the station's machines. No whispers, no songs, not even the faint echo of a conversation. For him, silence had become heavier than iron. The galaxy had not always been silent. Long before he was born, thousands of alien races had filled the stars with music, language, and stories. Then suddenly it was gone. The event was never fully understood. Some called it a curse. Some called it a punishment from forgotten gods. Every alien throat had gone dry, voices stolen as if by an unseen thief. But humans were different somehow. They kept their voices. They could speak, laugh, sing, and shout. That made them rare, precious, and dangerous. Some aliens envied them, others feared them. The Council of Silence, made of the oldest alien races, had decided that humans must be controlled. Ethan had grown up under that shadow. He had been chosen not because he was brave, not because he was strong, but because he had a voice. His voice was his only power. He never thought that the very sound of his words could change the galaxy. Now in the silent hall of the council, Ethan stood before a circle of alien leaders. Their faces were strange. Long necks, sharp eyes, and trembling hands. They had not spoken in centuries. Instead, they communicated with signs and holograms. Their silence was endless, yet heavy with judgment. At the center of the chamber stood a figure in chains. She was taller than Ethan, her skin glowing faintly blue. Her eyes burned with something Ethan could not name. Sadness or rage, maybe both. This was Lyra, the last of her kind who had been kept alive for reasons no one explained. The council projected words on a screen for Ethan to read. Will you give what is most precious? Will you let another speak through your gift? Ethan's heart pounded. He knew what they wanted. They wanted him to surrender his voice. They wanted him to become silent forever if he agreed. His voice would be taken and placed inside the alien woman. She would be the first of her kind to speak in centuries. The silence in the chamber pressed on him. Ethan remembered his mother's lullabies, the songs of his people, the laughter of children on Earth. If he gave this away, he would never speak again. He would never call out to anyone, never sing, never even whisper his own name. But when he looked at Lyra, chained and helpless, he saw something he could not ignore. Her eyes begged him, not with words but with fire. It was as if she carried the weight of millions of voices locked inside her. Waiting for release, Ethan stepped forward. His throat felt tight. He wanted to scream, to shout, to run. But instead he nodded, slowly, firmly. He was ready to give up what no human should ever lose. The council moved quickly. Ancient machines, long hidden, were brought out. They looked like relics of a forgotten age, glowing with strange symbols. A device was placed around Ethan's neck, sharp and cold. Another was set against Lyra's throat. As the machines hummed, Ethan felt a pull inside his chest. His voice, his very breath, seemed to be leaving him. He gasped, but no sound came. His eyes widened in shock. He tried to shout, but only silence answered. Lyra's body shook. She arched her back as energy surged into her. The chamber lights flickered for a moment. Everyone thought the machine had failed. Then a sound broke the stillness. A single word, soft but powerful, left Lyra's lips. The word was not in human language, not in any language Ethan knew, but it made the air vibrate. The walls trembled. The machines hummed as if waking from a long sleep. The aliens in the council gasped silently, their eyes wide. Ethan fell to his knees. His throat burned. His voice was gone, forever stolen. But when he looked up at Lyra, he did not regret it. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had heard an alien speak. Lyra turned her head slowly, her glowing eyes fixed on Ethan. Her lips moved again. This time her words carried pain and promise. The silence is broken, she said. The council recoiled in fear. Some trembled, others stared in awe. Ethan felt a chill run through him. He knew that whatever had been asleep in the galaxy was now stirring. The hook had been set. The silence that had ruled the stars for centuries was no longer safe. And it had all begun because a single human gave up his voice. The chamber still trembled from the sound of Lyra's first words. For centuries, no alien throat had carried a voice. Yet here she stood, her lips forming sound, her tone carrying power. Her voice was like a storm breaking through still skies. Ethan sat on his knees, his throat empty. He tried to whisper, but only silence came out. His voice was gone, stolen by the device. The machine had done its work. He would never speak again. A hollow ache filled his chest, as if a part of his soul had been pulled out and caged in another body. The council reacted in shock. Some leaned forward with wide eyes. Others drew back in fear. For them, sound itself was a dangerous weapon. A few raised their hands to signal guards to stop her, but it was too late. Lyra's voice had already broken the old order. Lyra staggered, her chains rattling as she tried to steady herself. She touched her throat as if she could not believe it. Tears formed in her glowing eyes. Her first words had been raw, uncontrolled, but now her voice steadied. It carried sorrow, fire, and something ancient hidden inside it. Why did you do this? She asked Ethan. Her tone shook, heavy with disbelief. Why would a human give away the only gift left in this galaxy? Ethan could not answer. He pressed a hand to his throat, then placed his palm over his chest. He gestured slowly, pointing to her. His eyes said what his lips could not, because you needed it more. For a long moment, Lyra stared at him. Then she bowed her head, as though his silent courage weighed heavier than all the stars above them. But the council was not at peace. A signal flashed across the walls, projected by their machines. This is dangerous. This will bring destruction. The voice must be silenced again. Guards stepped forward. Tall alien soldiers clad in dark armor. They raised weapons that hissed with energy. Their orders were clear. Stop the woman before her. Sound grew stronger. Lyra's chains tightened around her wrists, glowing with restraint. Yet something inside her burned brighter. She opened her mouth again, and when she spoke, the walls shook harder than before. Stand back, her voice rang out. The command was not just sound, it was force. The guards froze where they stood, their armor locking as if an unseen power held them still. Ethan's eyes widened. He understood now. Her voice was more than words, it was a key. It carried a command woven into the very fabric of reality. This was no ordinary gift, this was a weapon, or maybe something far greater. The council's chamber erupted into chaos. Some tried to flee, some stared in worship. Others called for her death. Fear spread like fire. But amidst the storm, Lyra's gaze never left Ethan. I will not waste what you gave me, she said. Her voice softer this time, filled with promise. You gave your voice so I could speak. Then I will speak not only for myself, but for all who have been silenced. Ethan felt his heart tighten. His body was weak, his throat empty, but hearing her words filled him with strength he did not expect. Even voiceless, he was not powerless, but already something darker stirred. Lights flickered across the station. Deep beneath the chamber, old machines powered on for the first time in centuries. The silence that had been forced upon the galaxy was breaking, and with it came consequences no one had prepared for. Lyra fell to her knees, clutching her head as whispers echoed from nowhere. Her voice had opened a door that should never have been touched. Ethan rushed to her side, holding her arm. His silent eyes begged her to hold on. She gasped, her new voice trembling. The silence. It was never natural. It was a prison, a seal, and now it is cracking. The council finally understood the truth. This was not only about giving an alien her voice back. This was about something far larger, something buried in the silence of the stars. The alien leaders signaled again, their lights flashing. End this now, she must not speak again. Destroy the voice before it spreads, Ethan shook his head. He stood tall in front of Lyra. Spreading his arms wide, he had no voice to shout. But his body shouted louder than words. No, Lyra rose slowly, her chains glowing brighter as if resisting her power. She looked at the silent humans in the chamber, then at Ethan, and then at the vast council. Her next words shook everyone to their core. I am not the curse, she said, her voice echoing like thunder. I am the answer. The floor cracked beneath her feet as her voice carried outwards. Machines all across the station powered on. Lights in far corners of the galaxy blinked alive. Old relics woke from slumber. Ethan realized in that moment that his sacrifice had not only given her a voice, it had awakened something buried deep in the galaxy's bones. Something no one was ready to face. And as the alarms blared and soldiers panicked, Ethan could only think one thing. His voice was gone. But through her, the galaxy would finally hear the truth. The silence after Lyra's last cry did not feel like silence at all. It felt alive, charged, as though every corner of the galaxy had stopped to listen. The chamber smelled of burning wires, machines groaned awake, and shadows flickered across the walls. Ethan clutched his throat, his breath heavy. He had no voice to call out, yet his eyes followed Lyra. His heart pounded as if it wanted to shout for him. He had given her everything, and now she carried it. The question that echoed in his mind was simple. What would she do with it? Lyra's chains still glowed, but they could not silence her. She stood taller now, her blue skin shimmering under the harsh lights. Her lips trembled, then curved into a shape no one had seen for centuries. A song. At first it was only a hum, soft and fragile. But that sound spread through the chamber like ripples on water. The air seemed to breathe again. Dust lifted, walls vibrated gently. And every alien in the council turned their eyes toward her. The hum deepened. Words followed. Strange syllables no human had ever known. They rolled like thunder, sharp yet beautiful. The aliens gasped, though voiceless. Their bodies shook with recognition. It was their ancient tongue. Their mother speech thought to be dead forever. Machines hidden in the chamber responded instantly. Old consoles flickered to life, lights flashing in patterns long forgotten. Even the great dome above them cracked open slightly, revealing stars beyond. Her voice was not just sound, it was a key unlocking doors closed for ages. Ethan's chest burned with both pride and fear. He could not stop staring at her every note. Every word she spoke carried a power he could feel deep in his bones, and he wondered, had he unleashed salvation or something the galaxy had wisely buried? The council panicked. Their signals flashed wildly. Stop her, contain her, the voice is forbidden. But Lyra ignored them. Her song grew stronger. Her words carried not just melody but command. Wake, she whispered, and far beyond the chamber, ships buried in alien hangars powered on. Rise, she said, and long-dead machines stirred from endless sleep. The soldiers tried to move again, but her voice bound them like invisible chains. Their armor locked, their weapons refused to fire. They struggled against her sound, but they were nothing before the power of her words. One alien leader, older than all the rest, lifted trembling hands and bowed. His lips moved silently. Tears in his eyes, he had no voice, but Ethan understood his meaning. Gratitude, awe-worship. Lyra's eyes softened when she saw him. Her song turned gentle. She spoke a phrase that none but Ethan understood. Freedom is not a curse. Her words cut deeper than any blade. For the first time, Ethan understood what this meant. The silence was not only a prison for the aliens. It was a lie, a control. Someone long ago had sealed away their voices, hiding the truth of what sound could do, and now through one sacrifice that truth was awake again. But awakening truth is never safe. As Lyra's song filled the chamber, alarms roared through the station, the floor shook, and holograms lit up with red warnings. Something is approaching. Ethan staggered as the chamber's walls displayed massive shadows moving in the void of space. Shapes older than any ship, darker than the stars. They were not fleets, they were creatures drawn by the sound, creatures that had waited in silence for centuries. Lyra's song faltered as she too saw them. Her voice trembled. They heard me, she whispered. Fear crept into her tone for the first time. The council fell into chaos. Some screamed silently. Hands raised in frantic signals, others tried to flee. The galaxy's silence had not been safety. It had been a barrier, a shield, and now, with the first true words spoken in ages, that barrier had cracked. Ethan ran to Lyra's side. His body moved on instinct. He grabbed her arm, urging her with his eyes to stop, to hide, to survive. He could not speak. But his silence screamed louder than words. But Lyra shook her head slowly. Her eyes glowed brighter, her voice steadied. She placed a hand over Ethan's chest, where his silent heart thundered. You gave me your voice, she said. Now I must use it not only for us, but for all who live under these stars. She stepped forward, chains still clattering, and faced the void where shadows moved. Her body shook, but she did not run. She lifted her chin, and with a breath that seemed to draw power from the very stars, she spoke again. Her words rolled across the galaxy. I am not silence, she cried. I am the answer you tried to bury. The creatures stirred. Stars flickered and worlds far away trembled. The first words had not only broken silence, they had summoned what silence was meant to hold back. Ethan could only watch, his throat aching, his soul heavy. His sacrifice had changed everything. The galaxy was no longer quiet, and what came next would decide if it would ever know peace again. The stars outside the chamber shifted like restless eyes. The shadows that Lyra's words had awakened moved across the void, great shapes older than empires. Ethan pressed his hand against the cold glass of the observation wall. He could feel the vibration of their approach. Even without sound, the council panicked. Their signals flashed wildly in the air, glowing symbols of fear. Some of the elder aliens collapsed, their trembling hands reaching toward Lyra, as if begging her to stop, but she stood firm, her eyes fixed on the darkness beyond. Her voice had called something, and it was coming. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He had no voice to warn her, no scream to give. But his silence was not weakness. He grabbed her wrist, pulling her back from the center of the chamber. His eyes were sharp, desperate. His message was clear: you are in danger. But Lyra shook her head slowly. No, Ethan, she whispered, her voice carrying calm and fire at once. It is not me they come for. It is the voice itself. It is you. It is me. It is every word that has been denied for centuries. As if to prove her right, the station trembled again. Lights flickered, walls groaned, and deep beneath their feet, ancient engines roared to life. The silence of the galaxy had been more than absence. It had been a prison door, and Lyra's words were the key turning inside its lock. The soldiers who had been frozen by her earlier command finally broke free. Their armor clattered as they raised weapons again. They moved toward Lyra, blades humming with energy. Their eyes were cold. They did not fear her, they feared what she might awaken. Ethan stepped between them and her. His body shook, but he stood tall. He had no sword, no shield, no voice, but his silence screamed louder than any battle cry. His eyes locked on the soldiers with one meaning: you will not touch her. One soldier hesitated, but another swung his weapon toward Ethan. Before it could strike, Lyra spoke. Stop, her voice commanded. The soldier froze, weapon still raised. His body stiffened as if trapped in invisible stone. The others faltered, sweat glistening on their alien skin. They had faced wars, they had faced famine, but they had never faced the raw command of a living voice. Lyra turned to the council, her chains rattling. You silenced yourselves to keep them away, she said, her voice trembling yet sharp, but you did not kill them. You only gave them patience. Now my words have broken your cage, and the darkness comes. The council's leaders lowered their heads, some in shame, some in fear. Their flashing signals filled the air. We must kill her now, or all is lost. Ethan's fist tightened. He wanted to scream, to argue, to curse them, but his throat betrayed him. His silence was both curse and shield. He looked at Lyra, praying she understood. She did. Her gaze softened. She reached for his hand, cold metal against his warm skin. Do not fear, she whispered. You gave me your voice. Now I will give it back to the galaxy, even if it costs me everything. Suddenly alarms blared across the station. Sirens wailed, metal doors slammed shut, and red light bathed the chamber. A projection appeared on the ceiling. Massive creatures moving closer. Their bodies were like shadows wrapped in bone. Their eyes glowed with hunger. They were not ships, they were living voids. The council fell into chaos. Guards shouted silently. Machines whirred to lock down the station, but the shadows pressed closer, drawn to the echo of Lyra's words, drawn to the first true sound they had heard in centuries. Ethan's stomach twisted. He realized what had happened. The galaxy's silence had not been protection for the people. It had been protection from the things in the dark. Lyra's face went pale, but her eyes burned bright. They were never gone, she said softly. They were only waiting, and now they know we are still here. The chamber shook violently as something massive slammed against the station's outer hull. Metal groaned. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Soldiers stumbled. The council screamed silently in terror, and then, for the first time since she had gained her voice, Lyra looked uncertain. She turned to Ethan, her lips trembling. I cannot fight them alone. Ethan reached for her hands. His silent grip was steady. His eyes told her what his mouth could not. You are not alone. Together they turned toward the growing shadows beyond the glass. Her voice rising, his silence steady. For the first time, they stood not as prisoner and sacrifice, but as something greater. The silence of the galaxy was ending, but the price of breaking it had only just begun. The chamber groaned as another impact shook the station. Dust drifted from the ceiling, sparks leapt from broken panels outside. The shadows circled like hungry predators. Their movements were too smooth, too patient, as if they were not rushing to devour but waiting for the right command. Lyra's voice lingered in the air, trembling with both power and fear. The council had fallen into chaos. Their signals flared wildly, demanding her silence, demanding her death. But their hands shook, and even their own guards hesitated. They knew what she carried was no ordinary voice. Ethan held her arm firmly. his throat aching with the silence that had replaced his own voice. His eyes locked on hers. They asked the question he could not speak. What are these things? Why are they here? Lyra closed her eyes for a moment. Her breath came heavy, as though every word she was about to say carried centuries of weight. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer, but every syllable still carried the force of truth. They call them shadows of the first song, she said. They are not ships, not beasts, not machines. They are what was left behind when the first voices shaped the stars. Ethan frowned, his silence filled with confusion. Lyra continued, her gaze distant. In the beginning, sound was not just air, it was creation. The first races sang the galaxies into being. Their voices carved suns, their words spun planets. Their songs gave birth to life, but from those songs came echoes. Echoes that twisted, grew hungry, became the shadows. They were born of voice, and they feed on voice. The chamber fell still. The council stared at her, their trembling eyes filled with recognition. They had always known, Ethan realized. They had hidden this truth. They had chosen silence not for peace but for survival. Lyra's chains rattled as she stepped forward. That is why your voices were taken. The silence was not a curse, it was a shield. A prison built by your own ancestors to starve the shadows, to keep them asleep. Her words sent a chill through Ethan's body. He touched his throat, remembering the emptiness there. He had given his voice freely, but in doing so, had he broken the prison that held back these ancient predators? Lyra turned to him, her expression heavy with sorrow. Your gift was not wasted, human, but it was dangerous. My voice is not only my own, it carries the memory of my people. The key to what was locked away. When I spoke, I woke them. Ethan's hands tightened into fists. His silent eyes burned with both fear and defiance. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that his sacrifice was worth it, but deep inside, he knew the truth. His choice had broken the galaxy's longest chain. The council flashed their signals furiously. You must end this. She must die before more words are spoken. Lyra's voice rose sharply, stopping their frenzy. Kill me, and it will not matter. They are already awake. They're already coming. Another strike shook the hull. Louder this time, a section of the chamber wall cracked, revealing the swirling darkness beyond. The shadows pressed closer, their glowing eyes watching like predators waiting for prey to scream. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper, trembling but firm. They are listening to me. Ethan, to every sound I make, my words call them closer. My silence pushes them back, but I cannot keep both. I cannot be voice and silence at the same time. Ethan stepped forward, his silence louder than 1,000 shouts. His hands pressed against hers, his eyes pleaded. You are not alone. You don't have to carry this alone. She smiled faintly, the weight of her sorrow hidden beneath determination. You gave me your voice to speak truth, she said. Now I will use it to uncover everything they tried to bury. Her gaze turned to the council, her voice shaking the chamber again. You thought silence was safety, but it was only delay. You hid the truth from your children, from your worlds. You starved them of sound so the shadows would sleep. But sleep is not death. And now the galaxy must face what it created. The soldiers faltered, some lowering their weapons, some even bowed their heads. The power of her words was not only in their force, but in their truth. Lyra leaned close to Ethan, her voice softer now, just for him. You asked why I deserved your gift. This is why. Because I am not afraid to speak when others are too afraid to try. Even if it destroys me. Another tremor rocked the chamber. This time, pieces of the ceiling fell. Smashing against the floor, sparks showered them in red light. The shadows pressed harder, their hunger thickening the air. Ethan stood at her side, voiceless but resolute. His silence was no weakness. It was faith, it was trust. He would not leave her, no matter what truth her voice uncovered. And as the chamber cracked under the weight of ancient echoes, Lyra raised her head once more, her eyes blazing. The silence was never meant to last forever, she declared. The galaxy must choose, remain voiceless, or face the shadows and sing again. The shadows roared against the hull. As if answering her challenge, the prison had been broken, and now the galaxy stood on the edge of a storm older than stars. The station was no longer steady. Metal screamed as the shadows pressed against its hull, their massive bodies sliding like liquid darkness across the glass. Red alarms pulsed in the chamber, painting every face with the color of fear. Ethan stood beside Lyra, his throat burning with silence. He had no words, but his presence was iron. His eyes never left hers. He was ready to protect her with the last strength in his body. The Council of Silence was breaking. Their signals flashed in frantic patterns. We must destroy her or we are all doomed. Her voice feeds them. Every word brings them closer. But others among them shook their heads, lowering their hands in surrender. Their eyes glistened with tears they could not voice for the first time in centuries. Some remembered what it was to hear truth. Lyra's chest rose and fell. Her chains rattled as she turned to Ethan. "They want me dead," she said. "But even if they kill me, the shadows will not stop." The silence is already broken. The floor trembled again. Cracks ran across the chamber walls. Outside, one of the shadows pressed closer, its body unfolding like smoke. Its glowing eyes locked directly on Lyra. It did not see the council. It did not see the station. It saw only her voice. Ethan gritted his teeth, rage burning in his eyes. He stepped in front of her once more, arms spread wide. His silence roared. "You will have to go through me first." The soldiers hesitated, their weapons hummed. Their eyes shifted between the council's orders and Ethan's unshakable stand. He was only human, voiceless and fragile, yet something about his defiance cut through their fear. Lyra's hand touched Ethan's shoulder. Her voice dropped into a whisper. "I cannot fight them with power alone. My voice commands, but it also calls. If I use it wrong, I will summon more. If I hold it back, we will fall." She closed her eyes, breathing deep. "Ethan, there is one word. A word older than the stars. My people locked it away. They called it the core song. It can bind the shadows, but it may cost everything if I speak it. I may never stop speaking again. My body may not survive it." Ethan turned to her sharply. His hands gripped hers, his silence screamed, "No, don't sacrifice yourself, not like I did." Her lips trembled into a sad smile. "You gave your voice so that truth could be heard. Now I must give mine so that life can continue. This is the path we share." Before Ethan could stop her, another strike hit the station. The floor collapsed at the far end of the chamber, dragging soldiers and council members into the darkness below. The chamber filled with fire and smoke. The shadows pressed harder, their hunger thick as a storm. Lyra rose, chains breaking as if shattered by her will. Her eyes glowed like stars. She looked at Ethan one last time. Her voice softened. "Stay with me. Even if you cannot speak, stay with me." Ethan nodded. His silence was iron. He would not leave her. Lyra lifted her arms. Her voice thundered across the chamber, not in words but in song. The sound was vast, deeper than planets, sharper than blades. It cut through the smoke, through the fear, through the shadows themselves. The shadows reeled, their bodies twisting. Their glowing eyes dimmed as the song wrapped around them like chains of fire. The station shook under the force. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. But the cost was heavy. Blood ran from Lyra's nose. Her skin cracked with glowing lines. The song was tearing her apart. Ethan rushed to her side, holding her even as the power roared from her throat. His arms steadied her body. His silence steadied her soul. The shadows screamed, their voices like thunder across the void. They smashed against the invisible chains her song created, but they could not break free one by one. Their bodies dissolved into dust, scattered into the stars. The council stared in awe, their trembling hands lowered for the first time in centuries. They witnessed what true voice meant, not destruction, but sacrifice, not chaos, but defiance. Lyra's body weakened, her song faltered. She collapsed into Ethan's arms, her voice still humming faintly, her eyes half closed. "It worked," she whispered. "But it is not over. The shadows are endless. They will return." Ethan's chest ached. He wanted to scream her name, but only silence escaped. Tears blurred his vision. He held her tighter. His silence spoke the words his throat could not. "You are not alone. I will carry this with you." Lyra smiled faintly, her glowing eyes dimming. "You are my voice now," she whispered, and then her head rested against his chest, her body trembling from exhaustion. Outside, the stars were quiet again, but it was not the old silence. It was the silence after a storm, a fragile peace, one that could break at any moment. Ethan lifted his head, staring at the galaxy beyond the cracked dome. His voice was gone, hers was fading, but together, they had shown the truth. Silence could no longer protect the stars. Only courage could, and as the council looked upon the two of them, one voiceless human, one broken alien, they knew the galaxy had reached its breaking point. The chamber was ruined, Smoke drifted in thin streams, walls cracked. Metal groaned as if the station itself was trying to breathe. The shadows had retreated into the void, scattered like ash on the wind. But their hunger was not destroyed. Only delayed. Ethan knelt on the broken floor. Lyra's trembling body in his arms, her chains were shattered. Her skin glowed faintly as if fire lived beneath it. Her eyes opened weakly, still bright despite her exhaustion. "You held them back," Ethan mouthed silently. His lips moved, but no sound came. His silence was heavy, filled with pride and grief. Lyra touched his face with trembling fingers. "Not forever," she whispered. "The shadows will return. They are bound to voice, they will always seek it. But now the galaxy knows, now they cannot hide behind silence anymore." The council gathered slowly. Many had fallen, others limped through the smoke. Their signals flickered with shame, fear, and confusion. For centuries, they had believed silence was strength. Now, faced with the truth, they seemed like children caught in a lie. One of the oldest among them stepped forward. His thin frame shook. His eyes glistened with tears he could not voice. He bowed deeply before Lyra and Ethan. His hands lifted a single message in light. "Forgive us, we were cowards. We left the burden for you." Lyra's lips curved in a tired smile. Her voice was soft but clear. "You were not cowards, you were survivors. But survival without truth is only a slower death." Her words struck them harder than any weapon. The council lowered their heads, some collapsing to their knees. Ethan's chest tightened, even voiceless. He felt the weight of history pressing on them all. Suddenly the ground shook again, but this time not from attack. The station's core pulsed with light. Machines hummed louder. Ancient systems long thought dead flickered alive. Lyra's song had not only bound the shadows, it had awakened the heart of the station itself. Holograms filled the chamber. Projections of ancient beings, tall and radiant. Their forms were made of sound itself, their mouths moving in silent harmony. These were the first singers, the ones who had shaped the stars. Their images carried a message not in words but in vibration. Ethan and Lyra felt it in their bones. The galaxy is not meant for silence. The galaxy is meant to sing, but every song has a price. Lyra's eyes widened, her breath shaking. "They left us this choice, Ethan. They left it for those who would dare to break the silence." Ethan squeezed her hand. His silence burned. He wanted to ask what that choice was, but she already knew. "We can restore silence," she said, her voice trembling. "Seal the shadows away again, but if we do, the galaxy will lose every voice, even yours, even mine, or..." Her eyes lifted to the stars beyond the cracked dome. "We let the galaxy speak again, and face the shadows with courage instead of hiding." The council froze. Their signals flared with panic. Half wanted silence restored. The other half could not bear to lose the gift of voice again. The chamber filled with division, fear, and desperate light. Ethan turned to Lyra, his eyes locked on hers. He had no words, but his silence was steady. His choice was clear: life with voice, even with danger, is worth more than empty survival. Lyra smiled weakly, her voice breaking but resolute. "Then so it shall be," she whispered. She turned to the galaxy, her body trembling with the last strength she carried. Her voice rose, not as command, not as weapon, but as promise. "We will not hide. We will not bury our truth. We are the voices of the stars, and we will be heard." Her words rippled out of the chamber, through the station, across the void. The sound carried beyond light, beyond time. Every world, every ship, every broken heart in the galaxy felt it. For the first time in centuries, they heard not silence, but unity. Children cried out with sound that shook their parents' hearts. Old machines sang again. Forgotten species spoke names they thought lost forever. The galaxy was alive. Ethan's chest ached as he watched it unfold. His voice was gone forever, but he did not need it. Through Lyra's words, his choice had become eternal. He had given up sound, but in return, the galaxy had found its voice. The shadows shrieked in the distance, their hunger rose. But now the stars were no longer defenseless. They had voices to resist, to fight, to sing. Lyra leaned against Ethan, her body weak but her spirit fierce. She whispered the last words of the tale, meant only for him. "You gave me silence so I could give them sound. But in truth, you are the voice they will remember." The human who broke the galaxy's silence. Ethan held her tightly, his eyes on the stars, his lips moved without sound. But his heart spoke louder than any voice. "I will never leave you." And as the galaxy sang its first new song in centuries, Ethan and Lyra stood at its center, One voiceless human, one alien reborn together. The beginning of a chorus that would never be silenced again.